Welcome back everyone, it's me Matt, and thank you so much for joining me today. We're talking about tank ammunition. Now, as an early age, as a boy, I used to play video games on the PC, one of them specifically being Armored Fist. If you ever played it, fantastic game for the PC back in the day, created by Novalogic. I think they had 3 different Armored Fist games, and it primarily honed around the Abrams tank. And at a young age, I was very fascinated about how the tank actually worked, and the game was great at blowing things up and actually enjoying it, but it also made you learn how the Abrams came to be, its capabilities, and really sort of taught you so much more about than just blowing things up. But one thing that I really enjoyed about the game is it taught you about the ammunition that the Abrams used, from its M1A1 variant to the M1A2 and furthermore. And today we're talking about specifically the Abrams ammunition. Now, this video is quite backdated, if anything, and the ammunition that I'm talking about today has been around for quite some time. The M1147, or the XM1147 Advanced Multi-Purpose round. And as I said, as a young age, I was really fascinated about how ammunition for the Abrams, or any main battle tank for that matter, came to be. 120mm of smooth-bore precision really is an interesting ballistic system to learn and understand, and when it comes to specific ammunition, the Abrams has a host of different rounds to use, whether it be the Sabre, or as we call in the UK, the Fin round, to a high-explosive anti-tank, or the Heat round, and even the Staff round, which has always sort of fascinated me as somewhat of a top-down attack ammunition. I know when I used to play it in Armored Fist, it was the round that you would use from the main gun to engage Hind Ds, which of course you would never really do, but it did have the ability to do that. The Staff round actually was something that could attack aircraft. Yes, kind of strange that you would use a main gun round against aircraft, but it could. And also sort of the bunker busting system, which is what this round has the potential to do. Now, many crews of the US military have been testing this round for quite some time. It's not new, it's been around for quite a few months now, especially since 2021. And the 3rd Armoured Brigade and the 4th Infantry Division actually have done a lot of significant testing. 1st Battalion, 8th Infantry Regiment done a lot of testing with the Crazy Horse Company. I've actually spoke to a couple of gunners on Abrams that have used this particular round, and they absolutely love it. With anything that's new and different, there's a lot of questions that get raised. Is this something that I would actually take to war? And from what I've been hearing and the research that I've been doing, it is a very strong yes. There's many reasons for that, but let's go through a few of them today, and we're going to actually look at the video that was created by Northrop Grumman, who designed this round. Now, testing for this round has been substantial. I mean, when they first started putting this through its paces with the combat troops on the ground, they did 86 different service rounds through the barrel, and each and every one was tested in multiple scenarios with, different targets, various different scenarios, and the crews literally fell in love with them. Being able to see the effects of the round and how it has different capabilities to engage multiple targets such as bunkers, walls, troops, armored vehicles. It's a very functional round, and the crews have loved the fact that they have 5 different rounds, bringing it down to just about 2, which of course, if you use your common sense, reduces its logistical burden and gives you more capacity to engage a multitude of different targets with the same round, which is game-changing, folks. It really is game-changing. Now, the 1147 certainly isn't a, similar kind of setup of that of the Russians, with sort of the wire-guided long-range missile tube main gun ammunition, but it does utilize the 5 120mm service rounds into a complex, I will say complex, this is a complex round, 2 basis round. The intent of the AMP is to replace the 4 rounds that are currently available to the tank: the M830 high explosive anti-tank or heat round, the M830A1, or the multi-purpose anti-tank, MPAT, the M908, which is an obstacle-reducing round, and the M1028 canister round, which, by the way, I have done a video on if you want to see the explosive capability of what that round does with the Australian Abrams. But let's take a look at this video and see what it has to offer, because it's really interesting. We're going to go through it and we'll talk to it together.
The M1147 Advanced Multi-Purpose Round, or AMP, is a 120mm next-generation multi-purpose round designated for the Abrams M1A2 main battle tank for the U.S. Army.
Let's just pause it right there. That's a pretty cool intro to introduce your ammunition, right? You got the rock music playing in the background, you got the slow-motion round pulling out of the gun, and of course a truck being absolutely obliterated into nothingness. let's just talk straight away, and let's go back for a second at what the round looks like. It is, in some regard, a rocket-assisted projectile. It is totally different to what we're normally seeing with sort of a sabot round, or the sort of flat-headed portion of a heat round that has sort of that sort of tubular connection that has the pin rod that allows for that copper projectile to punch into the target. It's a unique looking round, I have to say. The way that it shoots through the air like that is just incredible. I love watching slow motion ballistics. It is just soul food. But you can see straight away when it's actually engaging this truck. We're not trying to look at a round that can just nuke anything. We're looking at something that can nuke what is required and totally destroy something that may not need a fin round. Believe it or not, if you're going into a true combat scenario with depleted uranium ammunition, which I've done a video on, which of course no one wants to be using really depleted ammunition, depleted uranium ammunition for the obvious radioactive capabilities. But if it comes to a real-time scenario where you're having to use ammunition like that in a true combat tank-on-tank engagement, you don't want to be wasting those rounds on soft-skin vehicles. Maybe you only have a limited amount of these rounds to use at any one time. And if you can combine heat rounds, obstacle rounds into one round that allows you to engage something like a truck like this without the need for a fin or something more high-tech or sort of expensive, that's the way to go. And you'll see the different capabilities this round has, and for me, the one that really appeals to me is the engagement with the sort of Canizas-style shot that replaces that of the M1028. Let's take a look.
Made for the Abrams M1A2 main battle tank for the U.S. Army. Developed by Northrop Grumman in conjunction with the U.S. Army, the M1147 replaces 4 current tactical rounds, outperforming them all and increasing versatility, lethality, and survivability.
So as you can see, the round itself is very similar to that of the others in its general scheme of its looks. The base plate, the base cap, which is creating that ignition to the rest of the projectile, is still there. So you're still going to have that empty cartridge at the base plate falling out the back of the breech, which is completely fine. Unlike that of, say, Challenger 2, still using that, bagged ammo that a lot of people have, disagreed with. But of course, we're upgrading to the smoothbore now with Challenger 3, etc. But this is exciting because it is going to apply to the Challenger 3 when it does come out. They're probably going to be looking at similar kind of ammunition for their smoothbore capability when the Challenger 3 does come out. So this isn't just pertaining to the Americans here. This could be extended upon other platforms around the world, which is exciting stuff. So the basic overview or overlook of the shell is very similar, but the projectile is where things start to change up a little bit.
The M1147 simplifies load planning and maximizes stow kills by reducing the number of types of rounds the tank crew needs to carry.
So there you go. Okay, you've reduced a significant amount of rounds from your loading deck there. You have your fin round, you've got your high explosive anti-tanks, your MPATs, your canister round there, which is just like a gigantic shotgun shell, somewhat of a Nerf dart. We could call that sort of a spicy Nerf dart. Nerf darts. But look at that. You're getting 5 different rounds being composed into 2, which is logistically a lot more sound for you. It's going to potentially add more fin rounds or more, sabot rounds for you to engage tanks with a round at the same time that could do a whole load of other things, which is really, really exciting. I'm sure loaders out there are probably getting really excited for the fact that they have something they can tinker with a little bit more when it comes to how their stack up comes. It'd be interesting to see how a platoon of tanks organize their ammunition loads, whether, everyone stays the same, maybe a couple of the tanks take more sabot rounds than they would these rounds, or maybe one tank just primarily, or one platoon maybe, is primarily designated as sort of a soft-skin vehicle engagement. Hard to say. But it would be a kind of an interesting dynamic to see what the loadouts of modern main battle tank platoons will be with the Abrams with these new style rounds.
The tank crew needs to carry. Combat loading the multi-purpose M1147 reduces risk that a first round engagement will occur with a less than optimum ammunition selection.
So that's important, right? So combat loading, obviously getting around in there as quickly as possible. There's going to be times where you as a platoon or as a tank commander or a gunner are seeing an engagement or seeing a target that you have to engage, and potentially another platoon or another vehicle or asset, it could even be infantry, knock that vehicle out. It's not as simple as saying, okay, well, I have a round in here that's designed to take out a soft-skin vehicle that target's been engaged and destroyed. I now need to redesignate to another target, switch targets, and I'm now about to engage a main battle tank. This round, of course, isn't really going to be primarily designed to take out main battle tanks, but it does give a better, sort of a wider opportunity to use this round in other situations, such as, let's say, you've lased onto a soft-skin vehicle, and that's just been engaged, and now you need to transfer over to a bunker. But a bunker has a different property to a soft-skin vehicle. You don't want a round to hit a bunker and initially detonate. You want it to punch through the primary wall and explode inside there. This allows you to reprogram the round. So, you had your barrel and gun lased onto that soft-skin vehicle, and now you've combat loaded that round in there. It's in. You don't have much of a choice. You've got to fire it. Off you go to the next target, reprogram that round for delayed detonation, and off you go, that's game-changing, folks. That's programmable ammunition in the breach, which is really, really exciting stuff because it gives that loader, gunner, and commander that feasibility to re-engage different targets if necessary, because in true combat, it's absolute chaos. You're not going to have targets that just pop up perfectly every time. They're going to be things that are going to take them out. They're going to move. They'll become obscured from going over a ditch or whatever else. You can re-engage different targets and adjust this round as you see fit on the fly, which is exciting.
Ammunition selection. Utilizing the Abrams ammunition data link, the gunner is able to program the amp fuse to be fired in one of 3 operational modes: airburst, point detonate, or point detonate-delay.
So there you have it. There's your combination of different rounds that you can have. Airburst being somewhat of your canister round, point detonate primarily used for soft-skin vehicles, potentially some bunkers, maybe even ABCs, IFVs if necessary, and point detonate delays. You want something to punch through the outer exterior of the target that you're engaging and then explode on the inside, making maximum destruction to any infantry or assets that are inside of there. So this is really interesting because I think we're going to see a lot more of this actually in the artillery in the future too, not just with the main battle tanks. We're already seeing it. I mean, it already exists. But once a round's normally in the breach of a 777 or of an artillery piece, it's locked and loaded. It's ready to go. You can't do a huge amount to adjust that round. Excalibur obviously can do some adjustments in the sky, but in terms of its actual capability, it can't do a huge amount. It'd be interesting to see in the future if there's rounds that can actually turn from an HE round to a smoke round if necessary midair. I don't know, I'm being kind of crazy here, but it's exciting to see that ammunition can be changed in its requirement on the fly.
This capability allows crews to optimize the lethality of the round in multiple tactical situations. When fired in airbursting mode, the M1147 is effective against ATGM teams and dismounted infantry in neutralizing light combat vehicles.
Okay, look at the spread of that projectile and the ballistics coming off that thing. There is so much fragmentation coming off that round. It's insanity. Now, of course, canister rounds do have a very prominent fragmentation. That's what they're designed for. But the thing I love about this is that 1 minute you could have turned this into something that knocks out, a small light skin vehicle or, an IFV, to now knocking out this entire hillside's worth of infantry. That is really, really exciting. And this is where the key positivity has come from those who I've spoke to have used this round in testing. They have said that this thing obliterates, wood lines, small buildings, and emplacements that normal rounds would not be able to do, or would be more costly or less effective to do. You don't carry a lot of canister rounds in a main battle tank. It's just not feasible. It's like carrying shotgun shells when you're there to take out tanks. It doesn't make a huge amount of sense. But with these rounds, you do have that ability, if you want to put a multitude of anti-personnel rounds downrange. And as I said, the spread to that hillside is just insane.
The point detonate mode is ideal when up against armored combat vehicles and trucks.
I have to admit, I would not be putting one of these rounds through a truck, so much to speak. When you come to the Abrams, you have a whole host of other weapon systems you could use, especially with some of the more updated variants, with the M1A2 SEP variants. I would use my common weapon system or my, above turret weapon, 50 cal, put a few, traces through the side of this thing. It's going to cause a lot of damage. To waste one of these rounds on a truck, I mean, it's subjective. 50 cal does have its limitations as its distances that's going to fire, but to engage this with trucks, I don't know, it doesn't make a huge amount of sense. If I was a tank commander, it certainly wouldn't be something I'd be wasting a round on, considering at any minute BMP-3s could be flying over the hill that are about to engage you. So interesting that they chose a truck for the demonstration. It would be nice to see if they could have put, an actual M113 or a BMP, an old husk of a vehicle out there, to really see what this thing does, because a truck is basically just like slicing a hot blade through butter. Maybe putting a M113 or maybe an old Bradley husk there would have been interesting to see what this round would do, but a truck works, so to speak.
The M1147 AMP round is able to breach walls with 80-degree obliquity.
Now, it's interesting that they use the round to breach walls because, again, when it comes to asset requirements, to use a tank to bust through walls like this is extreme overkill, but it does happen. I've known stories of people, vehicle commanders using vehicles to bust holes in compound walls in, say, Afghanistan, stuff like this. But the infantry, when they're pulling in that size of firepower to bust a wall, again, wasting one of those rounds to do that, it seems a little too much to me. And in this particular scenario, I'd actually expect that the wall be blown out more, which was quite surprising to me. I personally don't feel that this explosion and this blast coming out the back of the wall is significant, but I'm not sure what that wall's comprised of. It could be really reinforced. But I actually expected a lot more out of the blast of this round to this wall.
To maintain the element of secrecy and surprise for the breaching force. In Point Detonate-Delay mode, the AMP round is programmed to penetrate the target and detonate at the optimal time for maximum effects on the target.
Now, being in the artillery, of course, my projectiles come in from above, the way we sort of have concrete headers that punch through to concrete bunkers and then engage and explode in the inside. Once again, though, if you notice in this example, it almost seems as though it hasn't quite achieved what it needed to do. Yes, it's punctured through the front of the bunker, but if you notice, about 50 to 60% of the bunker is actually still there. Anything inside of there is going to be dead, hands down. I mean, there's not much that's going to survive in there. But it's an interesting concept when it says it's, point delay. It gets in there, but I truly don't feel like this projectile in this example has done exactly what they wanted it to do. Probably because it's taken upon so much resistance in its ballistics before getting to the center of the juicy center of this bunker, so to speak, with that air gap. It would have been nice to see every single sandbag go whoosh into the sky here, but, at the end of the day, the round has done what you've asked it to do at this point.
Enhanced lethality, greater standoff capability, reduced logistics, M1147.
Okay, whatever that was, I believe it's that truck. Yeah, that's just had a really bad day. I'm presuming, and this is just a very wide assumption here, that this truck probably had some ammunition or some other explosives on board of it. A gas tank does go pretty big kaboom when it gets hit by something like this, but I don't think these rounds hold enough high explosives for it to make such of a big explosion as that. It's almost similar to that of the demonstration they did with the Javelin when they launch it. I think they did this demonstration like the early 90s, 2000s. They launch a top-down attack Javelin at T-72 and it literally disappears. Now, I think any Javelin you use against tanks nowadays, that's going to happen. But in that scenario, I'm not sure if you're aware, they fully combat-loaded that T-72. They had every single ammo rack of that tank filled to the brim. So, of course, there was nothing left after that demonstration. It seems like with this truck, it may have been the same scenario.
120mm Advanced Multi-Purpose round.
So there it is, the Advanced Multi-Purpose round of the AMP M1147. It's an exciting round, it really is. I'm really excited because I truly do feel that the Challenger 3 is going to utilize this kind of technology in this kind of round in the future. I'm also excited to see what the next step is. What else can these rounds do in the future? Rocket-assisted projectiles, similar to that of Excalibur and all those, GPS-guided rounds. Could we see the tanks of the future somewhat being turned into a howitzer at the same instance? Could we actually raise the barrel of these guns, GPS guide rounds up to 15, 20 kilometers away, not only able to engage tanks, but able to, provide indirect fire support? I'm kind of going a little wild and crazy there, but it is still something to think about, that tanks, in essence, when you think about it, could potentially turn into a howitzer at the same time. You could have a self-propelled tank gun. But the AMP, exciting stuff, really, really cool. I'd love to see, what's coming for the future, and whether or not crews, want to see more of these things. Despite the AMP still being in heavy much development right now, They're steadily upgrading their fleets, and the crews are spending a lot of their time to receive the software and the material upgrades to use these rounds, because at the end of the day, it is a programmable ammunition, so it needs computers. But it's a resounding yes from everyone that I've spoken to, and from what I can see in research online, that this round is here to stay, and clearly a lot more, funding and testing is going into this as being a sort of full service use round, which is exciting stuff. So I hope you learned a little bit about the M1147 today. Not a new video for sure, there's many videos out there that have already talked about this, but I just thought I'd put my little tidbit to it because I find it very interesting. Also, I'd like to do a massive shout out for those who have been supporting my Patreon and PayPal. Thank you so much for doing so. I would strongly encourage you also to check out the description box below for my Facebook, Instagram, etc. And also my clothing sponsor that I'm working with right now, Attire for Effect. They are an artillery-themed clothing brand. They've got some really cool stuff on their website. I would encourage you to go check out that website for sure. And I hope to see you on the next video. All the best, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.